by Cooper Glover, 1972. Um, I just learned this today when I woke up from wait yeah when I woke up. I found out Roger Moore passed away. But of course, everybody knows his most famous role is James Bond. And he's probably also fairly well known, probably to people that grew up in the '60s. And I was born in the '70s, so um, people knew him as a saint. And I've seen a few Saint episodes, and I think that's what partially got him the role of James Bond. Um, when I was growing up, like when I was a teenager, in like the '80s, I'd watch, um, television, and in those days, well, I guess they have movies they show on network television these days. Maybe sometimes, but maybe they did a little more back in those days. Um, Anyways, ABC would show James Bond movies. They would show, not just Roger Moore, but they would show Sean Connery, and they would show George Lazenby. But the first Bond I got acquainted with was Roger Moore. Um, I remember seeing trailers when I was in the theaters, in the early '80s. Like, I think I remember a trailer for Octopussy. I don't remember. Maybe there's one for Your Eyes Only. The first Bond film I ever saw was For Your Eyes Only. My family rented it from the video store, and that's how I got acquainted with James Bond. And and some of the Roger Moore Bonds were better than other Roger Moore Bonds. So For Your Eyes Only, for example, the starting of the film before the titles begin, that is great. I love that scene with the helicopter and Blofeld, and that's great. I love that. My favorite Roger Moore James Bond is The Spy Who Loved Me. It's one of my three favorite James Bonds. The other two are Goldfinger and On Her Majesty's Secret Service. But The Spy Who Loved Me I really enjoy. I've watched it several times. It's a film that I've watched so many times that I wore out the tape when I had videotapes. Well, I still have videotapes, but I think I watch more DVDs now than I watch videotapes. But anyways, I wore the tape out, got another videotape of it. I don't think I wore that tape out, but then when I got a DVD player, I got a DVD of it, and then when I got the James Bond DVD box sets, then I got that. And he was in some other good Bond films too, like The Man with the Golden Gun, really enjoyable movie with a great villain lead, Christopher Lee, really good in that. And Live and Let Die was really good too, which is Roger Moore's first Bond film. And Moonraker, I like the starting of Moonraker. I like a little more than the last quarter of Moonraker, and I like the cable car scene in Rio de Janeiro. I think so. Moonraker, I'm sort of. I love the ending of it. I love how they go up in space, and I love the skydiving scene at the start where James Bond has to take the parachute off the villain and get it onto him, but before he crashes into the ground. And that's and then of course they had comic relief with Jaws, played by Richard Kiel. Richard Kiel was in two of the Bonds. He was in the first one. He was in The Spy Who Loved Me, and then he was in Moonraker. And something happened to his character in Moonraker, where he sort of, I don't want to give I guess if you haven't seen Moonraker, maybe you should take a look and see what happens with Jaws there. Richard Kiel, by the way, he's dead now. He was, before he was in the Bond movies, he was in I don't know how many movies or television shows he's been in, but the other uh, claim to fame he has, I guess you could say, well, I guess you could, well, is To Serve Man, which is a Twilight Zone episode. He plays an alien, and if you can remember, Richard Keel's a very tall man, and the aliens were like kind of mute. But I'm talking about Richard Keel, and I'm trying to focus on Roger Moore. So um, and other Bonds that were made, like View to a Kill. I like the ending of View to Kill. I like the starting. That's the thing about Bond movies, is that the bad ones, had like good scenes, like at the start or the end, or maybe in the middle. Um, and yeah, so Octopussy, I wasn't wild about that. View to Kill had that great scene at the Golden Gate Bridge. It had the great scene at the start where he's snowboarding, and he's trying to avoid all these Russian troops, and then Octopussy with the portable plane, the fold up plane at the start of the film. That's pretty cool. Let's see. So yeah, so Roger Moore was, and he had these great one-liners that he gave, like when a villain died, or like with Drax when he when he dies in space, saying, when he says to Holly Goodhead, played by Lois Charles, he says he had to fly, or Katanga, I think that's the character's name, played by Yaphet Kotto in Live and Let Die. He says to Solitaire, played by Jane Seymour, he says, and I watched this on online today on his tributes on YouTube, so I remember it now. He says he had an inflated opinion about himself or something like that. So he always had these zingers, these one-liners, and yeah, so that's what probably makes him kind of interesting, James Bond, because the Sean Connery, who was a good Bond, who was a great James Bond character, but he's more like rough, maybe, and Roger Moore was more suave and debonair, maybe, more charming, kind of more genteel. I don't know, but they were both good. But my favorite probably was Roger Moore, and that's probably because I grew up with him. Because other people might be more in the camp of Sean Connery, but they were both good, and I'll miss him. But we still have his movies to watch, and I'll say one more thing. There's a movie he was in called Escape to Athena. He played a Nazi military officer, a Nazi soldier, and I won't tell you what happens to his character in that movie. And I had that on tape. I taped it off TV. It has Telly Savalas in it. I can't remember who else was in it. I should Google it and see what it has to say. But that was a film he was in that's kind of interesting. So, anyways, enough of me yammering. So, Roger Moore, rest in peace.